Stephen, or
Hi, how you doing?
Stephen, you okay?
Yeah. No,
there's no,
not at the
at
minute.
this moment in time, it's all English. So if we see.
But with your accent. Let me know.
You hear us okay, folks?
Thomas, I expect more to come in.
Okay, I'll let them in just a second.
Okay, guys, can you hear me? Lovely. I can hear, I can see you, I can hear you. So thanks for being agile on a Sunday afternoon. Lo and behold, we're early for once. So thank you. Couple of questions in the room from Paul, and then we're straight onto the Zoom call. Okay? Over to you.
Ian, can I start with a team news update? We saw Stuart and Paddy standing away from the training. Are both of those players okay?
We're just going to give them a little bit more time. I think with the games coming back to back, thick and fast, they making a late call on the second game, so give them as much time as possible, and then we'll assess it in the morning.
Do you prefer the fact that Italy have something to play for? They need to win to guarantee qualification, top spot. Do you like that?
I think it puts more spice on the game, definitely. You know, they're not going to come here, certainly not going to put if they've got a second string, and make sure that the game's played in a true fashion, that there's something on it for definite. So it's massive game for everybody. For us, we're taking it obviously as seriously as possible. Take us into the Nations League campaign next year, and on to the next Euros gives us a good sound platform to build from. So hopefully we come out with a positive performance, positive result.
What did you learn from facing them in March, and also how much did you see of them during the Euros, obviously, as they went on to win that competition?
Yeah, you could see they were clearly building for that competition, for that finals. Quality in all areas, and two players for every position. So if someone misses out, they can put someone in who's just as good, just as effective. Clearly went on and had a great tournament, won the competition, quite rightly so in my opinion. I thought they were the best team at the Euros, and I think they've just probably found it a little bit difficult to find the feet again to pick up the same sort of results. 3 draws in the last 4 games. Teams will raise their game against them as well. 1 or 2 players missing, and hopefully we catch them on one of them nights where again it's not quite happening for them. We've got to be at our very, very best to get something from it, and that's what we're planning for. Excuse me.
You felt the first half performance was as good as Northern Ireland have played on your term so far. It was an impressive performance. What do you think was key, and how will it differ from the challenge you face on Monday?
I think so. I think you saw a case of where we've had time with players again over the periods of the months together. September, October, November gives us a chance to work together at close quarters for a concerted amount of time, and everyone went out there who played with positivity, had belief in themselves, belief in each other, in a system that we've worked on for a little while, creating chances high up through getting balls into wide areas, players getting into there was an energy about us that an enjoyment to have the freedom to go and play within the team framework.
Stephen, how important will it be to nullify the threat that what John Gio does for the Italy team?
Yeah, it's going to be. He's going to ask a lot of questions of us. I think the positions that he takes up, he tries to entice you out of your shape and then play through the lines and into the space behind you. So it's important to kind of get that balance right, and when to go and when not to go. But he's obviously a top quality player, and he'll want to try and dictate the play. So it's up to us to try and stop him doing that.
You've experienced many of these types of nights at Windsor Park against the bigger nations, one of the top 5 in the world, the European champions. What does it take do you need elements of luck? Is it just everybody has to be on their game? What does it take to get a result in these types of games?
Yeah, against the top teams, obviously need a complete performance, that little bit of luck as well, and everybody to be at the top of their game. But it's a challenge, as I said, we're really looking forward to, excited about. What's not to look forward to, really? It's a great test for us against European champions, and as I said, being back here at home with the fans behind us, hopefully we can finish the campaign really strongly.
And it was encouraging on Friday, especially that first half performance. You sort of looking ahead into the next campaign, the next year. Are you excited about what you see? How much are you looking forward to that and the challenges that brings?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's important we try and build. I think with the squad in general, there's probably been a lot of disruptions through one factor or another in this campaign, which hasn't helped us really. We've obviously had a couple of disappointing results where we felt we could have done better, but there's definitely been elements where we see we're progressing. Obviously, the number of younger players coming through as well. So it's important that we just keep building, and obviously the next challenge ahead will be the Nations League.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Paul. Ian Parker?
Stephen, can I ask, were you sort of part of that generation that grew up watching Italian football, maybe on Channel 4?
I was, yeah. I was. Thoroughly used to enjoy watching it Sunday. Obviously, it was probably one of the only accesses to live football at the time, and obviously the Italian league at that time was really strong with top quality players. So yeah, watched plenty of games.
Does it make it a little bit more special when you come up against Italy, just having those memories?
I think coming up against all the top nations, it's a great challenge, and as players you always want to test yourself against the best and kind of gauge where you're at. And for everybody in the squad, but especially for the younger players, it's a game they'll be really looking forward to. And I'm obviously one of the elder ones, but I'm thoroughly looking forward to it as well. But we know it's going to be really tough. We're going to have to be at our best. But I think even from the away game, there was positives there to show that we can cause them problems. So, but these games are always kind of about balance and getting that right mix.
Not for the first time, there's been a lot of speculation this week about your future. Is that something you get used to and you can shut out now?
I've been asked it quite regularly over the last few months, that's for sure. And I don't know whether people are trying to retire me or what, but in all honesty, I don't at this stage of my career, I don't tend to think too far ahead. I think it's important. We've got enough to contend with for bringing the European champions here tomorrow, so my full focus is on that. And then, as I've said before, I think it's just important to reflect after the campaign and see how we move forward.
And when you do go back to club football to be a different manager, can you just give your thoughts on Gerard's move to Villa?
Firstly, I thoroughly enjoyed working under him and his staff. Obviously, great memories from the season that we had. Going unbeaten in the league last year was a great achievement. Obviously disappointed to see him go because we had a good relationship built there and a good squad of players. But ultimately, that's football, and I wish him the very best at moving forward. He'll be a top manager and already is. And I think whoever does come in is going to inherit a really strong squad, and we're in a good position at this point of the season and a lot to play for, so the goals remain the same.
And Villa's a club you know, what's the challenge he faces there?
Yeah, fantastic football club. They've obviously had a little bit of a disappointing couple of months with some of the results, but they've got a good squad of players there and they'll be looking to push up the league.
Thank you. Ian, if I could just ask one of you, you've spoken about sort of facing Mancini in the first game and the chats you were able to have. He's a manager that knows the British game well from the Premier League. What are you expecting from him? What kind of challenges does his team pose?
I don't think he's going to come here and try and sit back and soak up pressure. I think he's someone who likes to have possession of the ball, likes to play forward as much as possible, wants his team to be energetic, full of running. Our defenders, midfielders have got to be aware of runs from out to in and from deep. And you know, he's been something different for the Italians, I think, in the way that they've set out. And you know, to be an attacking coach, I think it suits their players and their style. So plenty to think about.
Thanks, Ian. Right, over to the Zoom panel. We've got a mix of Northern Ireland and Italian media on there. So we'll start with the Northern Irish first and over to the Italians to conclude. Mark Sterling.
Afternoon, guys. How you doing? You all right?
Hey, Mark.
Good.
Ian, just if you could maybe just clarify, I couldn't quite hear when Paul mentioned a couple of players who didn't train. I couldn't quite hear. Probably could you just tell us who those were again? Sorry.
Stuart Dallas and Paddy McNair didn't take part in any of it. So again, it's just I'd rather wrap players up in cotton wool and give them an extra 24 hours. So we'll assess them over that period. And for me, we want as many players available as possible, of course. So it means giving them a big amount of time.
And you talked after the win on Friday night about the importance of sort of stringing two halves together. Obviously, there's been a couple of matches where it's been good in one half. Is there anything you're able to do in those couple of days to try and address that, or is the time scale too short?
I think a lot of it has to be spoken about. Stuff shown in video meetings and talking one-on-one to players. But it's funny because your emotions are running high after a game, and you have a thought about how the game's gone. And I look back at it again yesterday, and in the cold light of day, probably the second half wasn't as good as the first, obviously, but it wasn't as bad as maybe I thought it was. And to replicate that first half would have been exceptional, to be honest. And for me, it was just one or two little tweaks that we've got to brush up on. But in the main, I thought we kept the Lithuanians away from goal, pot shots from outside the goal, and defended very, very well as a team. In the end, we just in possession of the ball when we won it back. I think that transition wasn't as good as we'd like it to have been.
Yeah, and apologies again, I couldn't quite hear Paul's question, so if this is a similar question, we'll ask apologies. But the first half on Friday night, as you said, was great to watch. Some of the passing and the movement was super. I mean, how much can that repeat itself again tomorrow night, or how much do you have to modify how you set up?
Well, I think you have to understand that probably when you come up against the bigger nations, this is not by choice, but reality and by design. It's you're not going to have the ball as much as what you would like at times. So, and you may be starting off when you do win the ball, probably a little bit deeper as well. So to make your way through the thirds of the pitch, to get high up, we've got to be clean with our passing. We've got to make sure we look after the ball in certain areas, and we make good decisions. And that's the higher you go against the better players, it tests you more.
And just lastly, for yourself, European champions, Windsor Park, just on a personal note, I mean, is this likely to be your biggest night in football, do you think?
No, not necessarily. No, I think every game's taken on its merits, and I think there's been a lot of big games that we've already watched and been a part of, and they all bring their different tests. Certainly when you go and play against one of the bigger nations, and having played against them in Parma back in March, you have to be aware of all the threats and what you've got in your team as well that can go and counter that. It's great to test yourself against every coach, and this is no different. This is a bit more high profile because it's Roberto Mancini and Italy, who are the European champions. So, but no, I don't see that as being the biggest game so far.
Thanks, Ian. Good luck tomorrow night.
Thanks, Mark.
Steve, if we could ask you a couple as well. Ian mentioned there obviously about your club boss moving on. Have you had a chance to be in touch with them at all since the news came out?
Yeah, I've been in contact personally with him, so obviously just thanking him and likewise.
And at the risk of repeating ourselves about your future, I mean, you said during the week you were reflecting on after the campaign. Is there still a chance, Stephen, that the Monday night could be your last game for Northern Ireland?
I don't know the answer to that question. So listen, I just want to try and at this stage of my career enjoy my football, get as much out of it as possible, whether that's club or international. I don't tend to look too far ahead. Obviously, the next games will be coming around in March here with the international team. So I'm certainly haven't made any decisions from my point of view.
I'm just thinking, Stephen, in terms of, I know this won't be top of your priorities, but in terms of the fans, I'm sure the fans would love there to be this is a definite, a farewell to the deal sort of thing. Is that something that's important to you as well?
No.
Fair enough. Just lastly, Steve, you've spoken about the importance of like yourself and senior players when there's young players come into the group. The importance of yourselves to help them along. Does that become even more important when the team is as big a team as Italy?
Yeah, I think like the senior players are always trying to give advice, lead, and just really show a good example and be there for the younger players. And if they come in, and all the younger players since they've come into the squad have handled themselves really well and acquitted themselves really well. And Dale Taylor obviously coming in this week once again is another example of that. So listen, young players love getting the opportunity to come up and make that step up and show the quality that they've got, and try and give the manager something to think about.
Steve, thanks very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Graham, Looney.
Hi guys, you okay?
Hey, Graham.
Good.
Good to see you. Ian, can I ask you, playing the European Champions is probably one of the toughest assignments really in international football. Is it important for the players to have belief going into a game like that?
You certainly can't have any fear when you're going into the game. If you've got doubts in your mind that you're not good enough, you maybe don't deserve to be on the pitch, then you shouldn't be in this squad in the first place. They've been brilliant for me, I think, this week. The way they've gone and applied themselves as players, as a group. Again, young players being brought into the squad. And whoever's given the shirt to start the game and whoever's given the responsibility to have an impact fully deserve to be against the European champions. And it's great to test themselves against them.
And just reflecting on the campaign, it's been difficult, it's been unfortunate in certain circumstances, but the players have given it everything, and the fans have been frozen out as well during the pandemic. So it would be a nice way to finish, wouldn't it? After a difficult campaign, it'd be a nice way to go out and a nice reward for the players and fans if you were to put up a historic result.
It would, yeah. I think it's been reported that we've maybe not beaten one of the bigger nations for a good while, and it would be nice for everybody involved. Yep, this year, this 18 months has been a difficult period for everybody for obvious reasons, and to have a full house tomorrow night, to a great occasion, great atmosphere, and to give them something to sing, shout about, and back the players. If we can get over the line and get a victory, that would be fantastic for everybody, and it gives you, again, something to go into next year's fixtures for.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thanks,
you.
Graham.
Thanks, Graham. Kenny.
Sorry, struggling to unmute there, guys. Hope you're well.
Hi, Kenny.
Ian, can I just ask about, obviously, Italy are missing a few, and Belotti instead of Immobile, that played centre forward the last day, is he maybe the type of centre forward that will suit our central defenders a little bit better? He's that sort of physical, almost a traditional number 9.
I think our centre halves are used to dealing with all sorts, and they play in the Premier League. They have to deal with the top strikers in the Europe and in the world. So Belotti, is slightly different to Immobile in that he is more of a number 9, but he's certainly got pace and power. If he wants to go over the top and down the sides of our defenders, and when balls are coming in from wide areas, we have to be aware of his presence and his movement. So he's a top player and someone we respect.
Is the greatest threat from Italy out wide when you look at the attacking fullbacks that they have, and then Chiesa, Insigne, and those sort of wide attacking positions, or are there key players to deal with?
All over the pitch, Kenny, to be honest, because if Insigne comes in off the line and Chiesa comes in off the line, then they've got overlapping wing backs. They've got midfielders that can score in Locatelli and Barella, and I could go through them, Kenny, and it's something that we've got to be mindful of all over the pitch. They're strong from set pieces. It's why they're the European champions. So you can't just pinpoint one or two areas.
I know you're not going to tell me the formation, but
Correct.
is there, in terms of 2 up front for ourselves would almost, would help the defensive effort in some ways in terms of helping keep the ball when it goes up the other end?
Well, it's finding
That's something to consider, isn't it? Rather than obviously,
it's finding that right balance from how many do you get behind the ball to prevent them playing through and beyond us, and how many then you've got in advance of the ball when you do win it back to be able to then keep it and have a platform to build from. So all things like that will be taken into consideration. Clearly who's going to be fit, who's not as well, will make us make our decision. So hopefully you see that come to fruition tomorrow.
Thanks. Can I just ask you, Stephen? I mean, obviously, Jorginho is such an important player for them, and sort of, as the phrase goes, making them tick. What can the midfield and maybe our attackers do to sort of restrict his influence on the game?
I think it's just important to try and get around him, try and get pressure on the ball whenever he has it, as you say, because he tries to make penetrating passes and be that transition for them from defence to attack. So, but he's only one player that we have to worry about in their team. They're a team full of quality. So, listen, we know it's going to be a massive challenge, but we just want to acquit ourselves right and try and give a really good performance.
Good stuff. Thank you, chaps. Best of luck for the match tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks, Kenny. Stephen, do you want to come in?
Yeah, boys, we okay?
Good,
Very
thanks,
well.
Stephen.
David, for the record, you know what I think? You can play your party then. You've been part of the best and biggest results, Dave, in the 21st century for Northern Ireland. I know what it does for the country, but if Northern Ireland could beat Italy tomorrow night, what would that do to the team going forward?
Yeah, I think as a group it'd be massive. I think whenever you get wins in general, obviously it builds belief and confidence in what you're doing. To get one against the bigger nations, then that multiplies that tenfold. So it'd be massive for the group as a whole, especially going into the next couple of years, which are going to be really important for us. And we want to put ourselves back in a position where we're for challenge again to qualify. So I think that's the most important thing.
You've scored twice against Mancini teams. What's the likelihood of you getting a third here?
Well, I didn't realise that, so yeah, I haven't had a hat-trick yet in my career, so that'd be nice to top that one off first of all.
But you've obviously had all these different roles, David, within the team, and now you're more of an anchor in the midfield. But I did notice you getting forward a bit more, perhaps than normal, in the last match. So is that going to be a theme going forward?
I think the way the manager sets us up, it allows for rotation in midfield, and at different times you have to do that to try and get on the ball and build. And obviously, the other night the way we were playing, we were higher up the pitch, and there was areas for me to try and exploit as well. So we've got that freedom with the ball to be able to do that. So yeah, whether we'll get the opportunity to do that as much against Italy, time will tell. But yeah, it'd be nice to get in the area to maybe try and to get a goal.
It's a real education, I think, for the young players to play alongside you in midfield. Is that something that gives you satisfaction that they're, I know you'd never say this, but they're learning at the feet of the master, like, but does that give you, does it make you feel proud? What sort of satisfaction does that give you?
Yeah, just think back to probably the early stages of my career, coming into first team environment at clubs and international, and just trying to watch the senior players and learn from them how they prepare for games, how they train every day, and just try and pick up bits and pieces from obviously midfielders that I've played with. So I'd imagine younger players are the same, and I think for all the senior players in this squad, they're certainly approachable if any of the younger players have got any questions. So just try and give them that advice when they need it.
And Ian, just one for you. How vital is to feed off that atmosphere right from kick-off tomorrow, because it's going to be crackling inside Wembley Park?
It is, yeah, and I think that's one part of it that we certainly speak about. We've got to keep our emotions in check as well. The sound of the crowd roaring to encourage you to try and get a tackle in or get forward, and at times that can sort of take over your mindset. And certainly tomorrow night, more than ever, we've got to be careful of leaving spaces, leaving gaps for them to go and exploit. So yes, we play with emotion, but we have to keep them emotions in check as well.
Thanks, lads.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks. Oh, aye. Dave Anderson.
Hi, Jez, thanks for your time. Ian, you're about my vintage. I just wondered, there's a real Sampdorian thing to Italy with Mancini and a lot of his backroom staff like Vialli. Do you remember that great team that he played in the late 80s, 90s? Scudetto, European Cup final 92 against Barcelona, lost, really?
I do, yeah, I do, and it's like I try and pick everyone's brains when I get a chance to have 5 minutes with someone, and certainly out there when during the warm up I had a 5 minutes with Roberto and 15-20 minutes with Gianluca, which was for me, I'm like a sponge, try and educate myself with as much as possible, and it'll be good to catch up with them tomorrow night as well. But hopefully we can turn the tables on them and get the result that we require.
I know those conversations probably quite, but is there anything in general terms that you sort of pick up for them, or what is it, Ian, that you sort of absorb from them there?
Yeah, it's just little nuggets that you try and take from every little conversation, and I ask about their preparation and how they come in, and whether it's from diet, whether it's rest, whether it's the amount of training they put into them, whether it's how many times do they get a chance to get together, how much conversations away from windows do they have, and where they get their suits from, and all stuff, David.
Some people call this like a dead road, but of course there's still something at stake, because obviously the match was third place in the group's important, because obviously it's would maintain the seeding for future campaigns. And how important is that, just to keep Bulgaria at bay and hang on to third?
Yep. The seeding suggests that we should come third in the group, and it's in our hands again now to do that. The coefficient point system for seedings in future competitions is massively important to us. But I think it's just to gain momentum as well. So positive results breeds confidence, and for us, off the back of a win against Lithuania, we don't want to get a defeat on the board. So a positive result will do nicely going into 2022.
And then just one for Steve. Steve, Big was referenced this a lot, but it's like 1961, Billy McAdams last time a Northern Ireland player even scored against Italy, let alone the last one was 1958. But there are these little moments, like everyone remembers David Healy 2005 England, like that's what the second most famous goal in Northern Irish history. But sometimes these little moments can come along for a player where you just write your name, and even if it's just scoring a goal against Italy, maybe not being part of the famous result.
Yeah, listen, having been part of the team that's had different massive scalps across the years, that's always your hope going into these games. Is I keep sort of repeating myself, but like we know the challenge that's ahead, the expectations all going to be on Italy. Outside our camp and our fans, nobody expect us to get a result, so it's going to be very difficult. But as I say, things can fall in place in the night. You can put in performances from all the players and all the subs making the impact as well. When the fans behind us, you just never know what can happen in football, and that's why we love it. So that's certainly our mentality going into it. We want to get another big scalp, but it's going to be really difficult.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Chris?
Morning, guys, how are you?
Hey, Chris.
Just a couple for Ian, please. In what's effectively going to be a must-win game for Italy, Ian, do you think that helps you in a way? Does that give you the ability to play with more freedom than perhaps they can't? Because as Stephen just said, the expectations are all on them.
I certainly hope they play with a bit of fear and that they are uptight in their play. But I think you look at, Roberto's been involved in so many big games. They've got players who are constantly playing in big games. So, you have to think about them coming here and think it is another game for them. Yes, it's a must-win for them. But, for me, we can only concentrate on ourselves. And as long as we're not uptight, we're not fearful about how we're going to attack the game, play with a bit of a freedom within the setup that we've got, and go and express ourselves in the right areas, then it could make for an eye-catching game.
And you mentioned earlier about, I think they're on a run of 1 win in 5 games, but obviously they come to Belfast as the champions of Europe, the number 4 seeds in the world, yet not on their best kind of run perhaps. What kind of team do you think you're going to be facing tomorrow?
One that knows their roles, one that knows their job. Whoever comes into the setup, I expect them to play a 4-3-3, but they attack in numbers, and that differs as they get higher up the park, and players who can change positions quite seamlessly, really, and say we've got to be aware of that. Not make sure we don't get pulled out of position, make sure we don't create big areas for them to work in and smother everything that they do, to be honest, and be able to break and play with the freedom when we've got the ball.
It's such a tight turnaround between the two games, and obviously two very, very different games. How challenging is it from a coach's point of view to prepare a team to such different games?
As we've mentioned earlier, you know, I'm still assessing the team to see how they've come out of that first game against Lithuania. So, you know, we can assess how Italy might play. We could perhaps guess what 9, 10 or 11 of their players will be and the way that they'll go and play. For us, it's a case of seeing where we are bodies-wise, see if we're okay, and you know, do we go with the same players and roll them out again, or do we bring a freshness in? And clearly that changes for our players. You know, with all respect, we haven't got the strength in depth as what Italy would have, and you know, hope that you know, everyone's clearly up for the game. Nobody comes into this game not being ready for it, and whoever's given the chance can go and can take the challenge.
Thanks, all the best, man.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Stephen Looney.
Brilliant, gents. Good to
Hi,
see you.
Stephen.
Just a quick one for Ian and one for Stephen, please. Quickly, Ian, any temptation to promote from the under 21s, bearing in mind that Stuart and Paddy, you know, skipped training today?
I had a conversation with John Schofield, the 21s coach, before the camp actually, and said, look, this game, it may be we take one or two with us. They don't play the game till Tuesday night, so if a body comes in from there, then you know, clearly one for experience as well. So we'll take that chance if possible. But again, I've got to assess what's in the group and see if we need to bring somebody up. So I've not made that decision yet, Steve.
Thanks, Ian. Stephen, knowing you as we do for a long, long time, it's been a joy to work alongside you for the most part of our adult careers now. For all your achievements and the longevity of your career and everything you've done in the game, you've always remained a very humble guy, which is an attribute in my opinion. Would it be right of me to think that if and when that fateful day comes, that you would rather slip off quietly than lap up the fanfare? I don't really see you doing laps at Windsor Park, blowing kisses to the stands.
Good job I don't need to think about it just yet, isn't it?
I didn't hear you there,
I say, good job I don't have to think about it just yet then, isn't it?
Okay. I didn't hear you again there.
I said, good job I don't have to think about it just yet.
Thanks, guys. Best of luck.
Cheers, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Stephen. Right, over to the Italian media. Stefano Boldrini, can you hear us? Would you like to ask a question? I'm going to take that as a no. Enrico, can you hear us? Would you like to ask a question? This interpreter was Molly
He's definitely needed for this.
Okay. As they say in Northern Ireland, I think that might be us. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Thank you.